guys, welcome to our podcast, Tigers Unleashed. I'm Hannah. I'm a junior sports comm major from Virginia.
I'm Abby. I'm a freshman sports comm major from Florida.
I'm Elena. I'm a sophomore sports comm major from New Jersey.
And today, our topic is television, broadcasting, sports radio, and show production. Our guest today will be John Bartman, who works as a videographer for Clemson Creative Solutions.
Today we have guest John Bartman joining us today. John Bartman is a videographer here with Clemson Athletics, and I'll let him introduce himself a little bit further.
Yeah, what's up? My name is John, like Elena said, and I am a producer over in the Clemson Athletics department. My primary focus is working on documentaries. So we have a gymnastics documentary airing right now, and then we filmed a baseball documentary last spring. So working on that as well, and those are my two primary functions at the moment.
Awesome. So tell us a little bit more about your background, like college, maybe like what made you get into working in production?
Yeah, so I was at school at University of Michigan doing my undergrad, and I was a marketing intern with their athletic department. So rolling t-shirts, handing out posters, handing out free pizza to students, making sure people don't steal the Grit After Dark t-shirts, that kind of thing. And that's what I thought I was going to do for the rest of my life. But we had a rival called Ohio State, and they had a booming media department. And every year before the Ohio State-Michigan football game, they would release a hype video. And the comments were just absurd. I was like, wow, we look absolutely foolish that we're not doing this. And I'm a teenager, so I'm in all the comments like, no, we are good, I swear. We lost every game I was at Michigan, not important. But I was talking to my bosses. I was like, hey, like, how come no one at Michigan is like doing anything like this? Seems to get the fans riled up. I'm not saying it directly relates to performance, but we're 0-4 in the game and we're 0-4 in hype videos. So he was like, well, it's not really something that Michigan's focused on. But I'm sure if you want to like make videos on the side for like the smaller sports, not necessarily football, I'm sure our comms team would love it. So I started dabbling around. And then I did an internship this summer after my junior year with U.S. Rowing, which is a small national governing body for rowing in the United States. So like when you see the Olympics and you see the rowing teams, U.S. Rowing is the governing body that like sends them out there and selects who's on the team. There was maybe for the whole governing body 8 full-time staff members, and there was like 8 of us interns that summer. So we really did everything. I signed up because it was a marketing summer internship. And then I got there and the guy was like, hey, you know what? We actually don't really need that much marketing. We need people to make content. And I was like, well, I've never made content. He's like, well, here you go. Have fun. They were not good videos, but I made them. And so then I got back to Michigan for my senior year. I was like, all right, boss, I can make videos. So he was like, all right, go mess around with the gymnastics team or something. I don't care. So I started filming gymnastics at Michigan. And just kind of experimented with that. And then pandemic hit May of my senior year. So I had nothing to do. So I just like ripped stuff off of YouTube, cut more videos. I'm a big Boston sports fan. So like Patriots would win the Super Bowl. Now I just go take stuff off of YouTube and like just for fun, like make something related to that. Then I got a job opportunity after a couple months of doing literally nothing in 2020. And went out to the University of Nevada to do a grad assistantship in video. Wasn't a great fit for me. Also, there's not that many sports going on during the pandemic, so there wasn't much for me to do. I was like, you know what? I don't really love just doing schoolwork again. Did that for 4 years. I'm good. So then I got an opportunity through networking at the University of Maryland to join them in a non-school role, just making videos. And I was like, done, I'm in. So picked up, moved back across the country to Maryland, and then was at Maryland for a handful of years, progressed through the ranks, and then now I'm here at Clemson. So that's kind of my career journey, if that answers your first question.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. So you did mainly like video, like hype video type things back in Michigan and Maryland?
Yeah, it was all social media focused. So like if you look at Clemson's pages now, like anything that you would see that would get someone to be like, oh, like I like Clemson basketball a little bit more. I like Clemson baseball a little bit more. That was that kind of stuff. So I didn't really know a lot about the strategy at the time. I was just told, hey man, we need a hype video for this men's soccer game against Georgetown, make it, and make it good enough for people want to come. And that's pretty much the extent of what I did for my first handful of years of my career. And then as I got better at that, Maryland started to experiment more in the longer form, like documentary space. And I found that much more worth it, in my opinion. It was just more exciting for me to do that kind of stuff. So I started doing that stuff with my boss at Maryland, who was very experienced in the field. So I learned a lot from him, and then got good enough to where Clemson came calling and was like, hey man, forget the social media stuff. We want you to do this other stuff. No shot at anybody that does social media stuff for Clemson. But I think my job's a little bit more fun. So that's what I do.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I have a question. First off, go Blue. My brother is a senior
Go
there
Blue.
right now. Yeah. So do you go film yourself and do you edit it all yourself, or do you have like a videographer who'll go do that for you?
It would be great if I had someone that could go do it for me. But no, so how we're kind of set up right now is we have me and really one other guy. His name is Joe, and we kind of do all of the filming and editing ourselves. Before Joe got here about a year ago, I had a grad assistant named Caroline who helped me a lot prior to Joe's arrival. So like in the traditional like film world, like if you were to watch a sports doc on Netflix, think like Drive to Survive, Formula One, or like Hard Knocks, NFL films, like that kind of stuff. If you look through the credits, there'll be producers, and they're the ones that kind of plan everything. Okay, like we know where we need to be, how many people do we need, how do we get there, how do we organize it. So if, like for gymnastics, for example, the night before their first meet ever, like last year, I was like, okay, I know that like the night before the meet, it's going to feel like the day before the first day of class. Like you lay your clothes out and you just lay in bed, eyes wide open, ready to go. So I was like, how do we capture that? So a producer's job would be to like get in contact with the athletes. Say, okay, this is kind of my thought. Are you available to do this? How can we do this the best without infringing on your life and doing what you need to do before the meet? Getting with them, getting with our camera crew, and then getting them over there. So that's what a producer would do. Your camera people would film it, and then obviously you bring that footage to editors and they would edit that. We don't have the capability to host a staff like that here at the moment. So right now I am doing all of that myself.
Awesome.
You mentioned networking is how you got to Maryland. How would you recommend going about that networking and making connections in the field?
Yeah, it's a lot harder now, I think, than it was back in my day. I am where I am, as fortunate as it is because of Twitter. When I was in college, like Twitter was a pretty laid back place. And under its previous ownership, it was a lot more fun to be on Twitter. And you could just like DM people whenever. And I remember my like junior, senior year when I was starting to get into video, again, I saw all the stuff Ohio State was making. I was like, I gotta find who's making these. So you can go on the staff directory for Ohio State athletics. Same thing with any college. They all have their staff directories. You can scroll down, find their name, look them up, give them a follow. Maybe they follow back, maybe they don't. The thing I like about Twitter back then is that you could DM people even if they didn't follow you back. That feature has been disabled because they want you to pay for that. That stinks. So I would just go find people that did what I wanted to do, threw them a follow. If they liked something or they did something that I liked, I would comment and be like, hey man, this is really cool, and just tried to be positive and supportive. I think a big mistake people make is like just jumping in like, hey, this is cool, can I have a job? And like, if someone did that to me, answer is, I don't got one. Sorry. You could be the best videographer in the world. I don't have anything for you. So honestly, my strategy for the longest time was just find people that did what I wanted to do, follow their stuff. Not only would it give me inspiration for my own work, but if you throw them a like, comment here and there, stay engaged, that when something does open up, hopefully they think of you. So that was kind of my strategy, and it's really not much deeper than that. Like that growth that I experienced over Twitter in 2020 is what got me to Maryland. Like I was at Nevada, I was not having the best time. And so I had some friends that I had made on Twitter because a lot of us were unemployed during the pandemic. So we're like, hey man, hop on Fortnite. Like, let's play some games, So we'd be playing Fortnite and they're like, oh, John, like how's things in Nevada? I'm like, honestly, I'm not having the greatest time. Like, oh, like I heard my buddy Tony has an opening at Maryland. Maybe I can recommend you. I was like, oh, I think I followed Tony on Twitter as well. So I would just DM Tony, hey, Tony, like heard you might have a potential opening. I'm looking for a next opportunity. Just would love to talk about anything you might have. If not, would just love to call and catch up. Very casual. And then turns out they had something. I was not their first, second, third, or fourth choice. But sometimes it's how it works. And so Tony messaged me on Twitter one day and was like, hey, man, we want to catch up about this job. I said, sure. Did an interview on Christmas Eve. Like a couple days later, they called and offered me the job. I said, bet, I'm there. And then same thing happened with Clemson. Clemson was going to have an opening. And there was a guy who worked at Clemson who doesn't anymore. His name is Carter. And I had followed Carter in 2020. He was trying to get me to go to Auburn when he was at Auburn to be his grad assistant. Didn't really work out. So then when he was at Clemson, they had another opening, and he reached out to me on Twitter, hey, man, we're going to have an opening at Clemson. Would you be interested? I said, yes, got the conversation going. And now I'm here. So all of that thanks to twitter.com in its heyday.
Love it.
Awesome.
So using social media obviously benefits sports teams. And if the sports team's doing well, social media is more than likely going to do well. But also on the other end, like as a creator, how do you use social media to boost your career opportunities and to showcase your work on the other end of that?
Yeah, I think it's very important to realize that, like, although college athletics kind of may have seemed like it started as, amateur sports, just people having fun, it's always been a business. Like going back to the start of college athletics was just intramural sports. And one of the things that I actually retained from my education in Michigan, among the very few things that I did retain, was that way back in the day, like I'm talking like hundreds of years ago in the Ivy Leagues, back when rugby was the big sport, a lot of university professors frowned upon the men at the university, which at that time was the only people enrolled in the university. If you were playing rugby like in the quad, they thought that was like unruly and like ungentlemanly. So there was a hard squash on intramural sports. And then kind of a new wave of administrators came in that were like, I don't really care if these kids have fun as long as they're not, doing anything malicious and hurting people. And then they saw a spike in enrollment and applications to those schools that allowed recreation. They're like, oh, okay, now it's just a business decision to allow this so we can get, more kids coming. Fast forward a couple hundred years, and now we're here. We got, massive football stadiums across the country, bigger than NFL stadiums, pouring a lot of money into this in general. So it's always been a business, and it always will be a business at the end of the day. So it's important to think about like why is Clemson putting money? Because every camera costs money to turn all these lights on. I'm in our podcast studio right now, so there's like TVs that will turn on and off. Like all this stuff costs money. Why are they going to put money into it? And it's hopefully that it provides a return. So the return, I think, comes from a couple of different places. Obviously, there's like a direct return. So like if I make a documentary on Clemson's gymnastics team, and Fox Carolina is like, hey, this documentary is awesome. We'll pay you whatever. I'm making up a number for legal sake, but like we'll pay you $10,000 to air this documentary on Fox Carolina. Clemson says, okay, we get 10 grand. They got a documentary to air on their TV station. Win-win, money. So that's kind of the direct version of what I do from a long form standpoint. There's not as much direct, kind of pay for completion in the social media world. Like you can scroll Instagram on all of our content. Like on some of it, you will see logos. Like on our game day graphics, you'll see logos. On our score graphics, you'll see logos. So that's all paid for. That's providing money to Clemson Athletics and ultimately Clemson University. There's also additional benefits. So like there's recruiting benefits. Like if we make something really cool that makes 16 to 18-year-olds think it's cool to be a Clemson Tiger, that helps our coaches recruit. And if we recruit better, hopefully we play better. If we play better, more people care about us because people care about winners. That's not BS. Like if your team stinks, you can make as much content as you want. It's only going to go so far. So we can help recruit and make your target demographic teenagers want to come to Clemson when they play sports. That's a win as well. And obviously winning will lead to more money. There's also the fan aspect of it. So for gymnastics, it was pretty easy to fill Little John Coliseum for gymnastics because it was something new. There's no major gymnastics programs within 5 hours a year. And so fans naturally had a curiosity for what's going on. we could have made zero videos. We would have sold out Little John at least once last year. I promise. However, there are sports that are here that people know already. People know basketball, people know baseball, people know soccer. Okay, how can we re-interest people in this sport? I don't know if re-interest is a word, but it is for the sake of this conversation. So if I can make a video that makes women's soccer at Clemson look that much more exciting, people say, oh, I'm not going to drive an hour and a half to Columbia to see a women's soccer game in the SEC. We can just go to Clemson and spend our money at Clemson. So you're trying to attract fans, you're trying to attract student athletes. I think the student population is an easy demographic just because people are here. At Maryland, it was hard because you're in the heart of Washington, D.C. Kids can go do whatever they want. So if you look at the attendance numbers for a school like Maryland, that, in sports that have, 500 teams, compared to Clemson sports that have 500 records, it's going to be a very different attendance at Clemson versus Maryland, because people at Maryland can say, we have 1,000 options that are more fun than watching a team 50-50 win or lose. Whereas at Clemson, if we're being completely honest with ourselves, like, you can go to Charlotte, you can go to Atlanta, you can go to Columbia, maybe you go to Greenville, but like there's not a ton here. So we have a much more captive audience. So if we can make a video that even makes it that much more interesting than going for a walk, or that much more interesting than just sitting on the lake and tanning, like anything like that, that's our goal. Come spend your time and your money here, not somewhere else. So that is the social media side of it. Whereas my side, like I said, is more make a documentary, get paid to make documentary, much easier business transaction.
Right. No, that's really cool, especially tying that into just like the overall success, like, or especially we're learning in class, just like the impact social media has like in general. And although the documentaries aren't directly tied to social media, I feel like it also creates deeper connections with like the athletes here, especially gymnastics being so new. I feel like already everybody knows all the players on that team. You know what I'm saying? Like they've made their presence in just a year. And I feel like a lot of that has to do with their social media presence and like how the Clemson gymnastics Instagram account like has built this persona around each person and each girl, and like bringing a name that they had, but like highlighting it more and giving them the platform to grow as not only athletes, but like as people, and kind of boost their career in like that sense. So
yeah, for sure. That's definitely a spin-off benefit of, doing all the social media stuff, is like at the end of the day, we want people in Little John, they're spending money, but also now with NIL, if these athletes can make money, that goes back to the recruiting piece. If, everyone knows Libby Dunn and Haley Bryant at LSU, like they make bank doing
right.
college gymnastics at LSU. So little girls will see, if money is a motivator, which is not for some people, is for others, I know I can go to LSU and make money. That's perception. So how do we create that same perception to steal those recruits? So they're not going to LSU and they're coming here. So that's also I wouldn't say that's our main objective at the moment. That could certainly change in the next year, but that is certainly a side benefit of all the work we do.
Well, that's awesome. Any last comments, Hannah and Abby, before we close?
I think I'm good.
No, he hit all the marks.
Yeah, you really did. You kind of hit every mark without us even pushing at it. Well, thank you so much for your time and for kind of diving into your career and all of that. We appreciate you taking the time to talk with us.
Yeah, no problem. Happy to be on and spread the propaganda of Clemson Athletics video.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks for having me. Have a good day.
We're so grateful that John Bartman joined our podcast today. He touched on a lot of really cool topics, such as just his uprising from working all the way over at Michigan, going over to Maryland, and then ending up here at Clemson, where he does long-form documentary-style videos. He has a lot of experience doing social media type videos, those kinds of things. And he touched on a lot of background and how social media has a large impact on athletics and just development of money within, the universities themselves, the athletic programs. He touched a little bit on NIL, and like obviously athletes have a drive to make a career out of this, whether it's money, image, whatever. So that was a very big topic, and how here at Clemson especially, like how can they implement social media and draw recruits and fans in, like how can they bring people here? People is money, and money can grow the programs and allow them to get more resources to bring recruits here and bring the best athletes that we can to Clemson. And so he touched a lot on that. It was very interesting also, topics that I never really would have thought of, like, again, recruits and using social media to kind of show what Clemson is and what, like, people scroll on social media. Maybe they're not sure where they want to end up in school to play athletics, and they see Clemson has like a really sick social media, and they have really cool showcases, and they have really cool media days, whatever it is. And they're like, wait, I could see myself there. So at the end of the day, it's like, where are these athletes? Where do they see themselves? And if they can watch a hype video of a girl scoring on the soccer field, maybe they're like, wait, I imagine myself doing that. Like, I can see myself doing that. Maybe Clemson is for me. And maybe it wasn't even on their radar at all. And they see it, they're scrolling on their Instagram and they see a Clemson hype video and they're like, wait, like, what is this school? And then they, look into it. Same thing on the other side of athletes and recruitment, like fans. He mentioned a lot about how, Clemson is in fact a small town. There's not too much going on around here, but there's a lot of people that we can draw in. So how do we draw those people in? Again, it's very interesting. Like, even over in Columbia is a big city, and it's a lot easier, I would say, to get people, because like that is what, in big cities, it's all sports. Like, people go live there, they go to sports, whatever. He mentioned how like here it's important, like getting people, instead of going to the lake, going to a Clemson sports game, going to a 9 p.m. basketball game, great after dark. Like, how can they market these games to fans around, families? Like, how can they get people to want to drive, an hour or two to watch a basketball game? What sets us apart from other people? And if they can see that experience is different than anywhere else, they'll make the trip. They'll spend the money. They'll bring their kids. They'll bring their friends, like whatever it is. So I think it's just very interesting to see how important social media is, not only for, like I said, fans, but also just recruitment and athletes in general. So it's just kind of cool seeing how his job has an impact on that. And even just, broadcasting in general as well, like utilizing broadcasting to draw in, the revenue, the athletes, and the fans. So very interesting, very cool, and very grateful that he was able to share all that knowledge with us.
I'm just gonna talk about the evolution of technology. Obviously, it's very much different nowadays than it was back when we were growing up, or at least I was. I know you guys are a little bit older than me, but not by that much. But growing up, I was not a very technology oriented kid or whatever. I was always out playing in the parks. I played sports growing up all the time, and the only sports I would see is if my dad left Sports Center on, and I know John does talk about his special areas like documentaries and having 30 for 30 on Sports Center, ESPN, whatever it's on. But that's how kind of I got exposed to it. And then sort of talk shows, I remember my dad would watch Pardon the Interruption all the time. I know that's still going on, but that's how I kind of got into sports media. And obviously I didn't really have a phone growing up till I was in middle school. And I didn't even have social media till I was a sophomore. So I was never exposed to all the sports stuff. Even then, I feel like it wasn't as big as it is now. I feel like each year, social media within sport is just growing and growing. And I think it's really interesting how John was saying, he made a good point that Elena touched on about how you can use social media to draw a recruit away. Say Libby Dunn, huge face of gymnastics at LSU, but how do you try to draw a recruit away from LSU and to Clemson? With the aspect of technology, showing how cool our school is, obviously. And like you said, Columbia, you could easily go to a big SEC game or whatever, and here you just get, what's drawing people to come to games and stuff here. And so I just think technology is really super essential. And I have not you have VR nowadays. You can watch games in VR and stuff. It's just crazy. So I'm curious to see what else can we do with technology, and what can we further with the use of sports in that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think technology is changing so quickly. I mean, you look back, like you were just saying, literally not even 20 years ago, you were still listening to things on the radio, listening to radio broadcasts, and then slowly we moved into things like broadcasting, streaming, things like that make things so accessible to everybody. I also thought it was interesting that John was talking about his social media presence in general, especially as far as networking goes. I thought it was really interesting that he said he used Twitter and that he genuinely got so many of his job opportunities through Twitter. I know that's like a big argument now about whether sports, athletes, production team, whatever, needs to have a social media presence. And a lot of people are recommending it. I know we talked about that in class, but also keeping certain things offline, such as like your political opinions, things like that, so that you don't want to upset anybody. I know our next topic for our podcast is crisis communication. So I feel like those things kind of go along, but I think having a social media presence is super important, especially when creating a character for yourself that everybody's going to see, especially for athletes as well, who are going to be seen on television. Creating that parasocial relationship like Elena was talking about, where fans really feel like they know you and you form that bond, ties all back into the business of it, where they'll pay more money for somebody who they think they cares about them or that, you know, they haven't that parasocial relationship with. And it all ties back together.
Absolutely. Well, that was awesome. Thank you guys for tuning in to Tigers Unleashed. We are so excited to kick off our podcast and to see what the future holds. We'll catch you guys next week for our next episode.